How many of you guys remember what Pastor Logan preached on last week? The beginning of wisdom, which is the fear. Who said that? Josh, Colby, my man. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. We are in our series on Proverbs, guys, and it is a series on wisdom. So as these buckets are getting passed around, make sure y'all are taking notes this week because note takers are world changers. That's what I'm talking about. Listen, it is going to be a very, I don't know if you want to say intense, but it is going to be a very meaty message tonight. All right, school's in session. All right, I know you guys get out of school at like 2:00, but school is in session for the next 30 minutes or so. All right, you guys are going to want to write some of this stuff down for your own good. All right, I'm going to start off with a story. As pretty much all of you guys know by now, if you don't know this, welcome to the family. Welcome to New Hope Youth. I used to live in Thailand my freshman year of college, and I'm going to tell a story. It was actually literally this is right when I got in to the country. All right, I had just landed at the airport. I'd gone through TSA or baggage claim and whatnot, and I was walking out of the Bangkok airport, and I'm going out to go meet the missionaries that I'm going to be living with for the next 5 months. And I'm not even kidding, guys. This is literally, I've been outside of the airport, like in the Thai air, for like 10 seconds. I look to my right, and I see a moped, all right? But this wasn't just any moped, because there's a lot of mopeds in Thailand, all right? Like pretty much everyone has at least one moped. This is not just a normal moped with one rider on it, all right? I look over, and I see this moped, and there is a father driving it. On his lap, he's got his son. Behind him, he has got his wife. Behind her, I'm assuming one of their moms, a grandma of some sort. On top of the handlebars, another son on there, and the son is holding a chicken. So you've got not just one, not just two, not just three, not just four, not just five. You've got 5 people and a chicken on a moped. And I take one look at this, and I'm like, holy cow, I'm really not in the United States anymore. This is a whole nother thing. So I'm in a group. There's 4 other people with me that were on this flight. So I see this, and I'm like, oh, man, they got 5 people and a chicken on a moped. Like, what am I going to be driving to the house that I'm living in? I'm like, if I walk up and our missionary Marcus is like, all right, guys, everyone climb on this moped, I'm going right back in the airport. But luckily, that is not what happened. He had a van, so we go and we pile in the van, but it didn't just stop there. Because we get in the van and we start driving on the roads there. And let me just tell you, people over there drive entirely differently than people drive in the United States. All right, there's like sort of lanes, but it's more of just a suggestion. There's no such thing as right of way. It's just whoever asserts their dominance, I suppose, and just decides to go. There's no speed limits really, or if there is, no one ever followed them. Because it seemed like we went the same speed everywhere. It's either we were like at a standstill or we were like zooming. There's people, they're like cutting across lanes, like not using blinkers. All right, it's like absolute chaos. It's like a prison ride over there. That's basically what it is. Honestly, it's a miracle that people are still alive over there because people just do not follow any sort of rules. They don't stay in their lanes, and It was honestly pretty impressive because for the first 2 weeks that I lived there, I didn't really see an accident. I'm like, man, these guys are all just like crazy bad/good drivers. But then after about 2 weeks of me being there, I'm riding in a taxi with my friend Jordan. We were going on our way to go do ministry, and Buddy is in I can't remember if it was a moped or a motorcycle, but he's zooming up in the lane next to us. The lane, there's not really lanes. And Buddy cuts out in front of us in the taxi, and we absolutely body him straight into a song towel. And I don't know if he survived or not. I got out of the taxi. I didn't pay him, and we went and found another taxi. All right, Father, forgive me. Maybe I should have stood and prayed for the guy. But I say all of that. I remember thinking as soon as we hit the guy, I was like, dude, if you would have just stayed in your lane, it probably wouldn't have happened. Like, you probably wouldn't have gotten in an accident if you would have just stayed in your lane. But instead, You came over into our lane and you got smoked into a song tao. If you guys don't know what a song tao is, it's basically a pickup truck where the bed of it's got like a roof on it, and you stand and there's like poles, and you just stand in the bed of the pickup and you're driving it. It's called a song tao. And the biker got absolutely bodied into it. But it just goes to show that, everyone needs to find their lane and they need to stay in their lane. People need to stay in their lane if there's going to be progress. Let me put that analogy into your relationships. Leading sociologists believe that if you are an introvert, you will interact with around 500 people a year. And for those of you who are extroverted, you guys know who you are. You guys are going to interact with probably 2,500 to 3,000 people a year. That's a lot of people, right? Maybe if you work at a grocery store, if you're a server, maybe if you come from an Italian family or a Bosnian family, and they're like all related, it seems like. Maybe you're going to interact with more people. You got a bigger family, But roughly, it's going to be in the hundreds to thousands of people per year. That's a lot of interactions, a lot of relationships that you need to manage. And it's really important to make sure you understand what lane everybody should be in, because otherwise it's just relational chaos. It's a lot of head-on collisions. It's going to cause a lot of problems. So what I wanted to do tonight is I want to talk to you guys about three different kinds of people, and it's on your guys' note cards. We got lane 1, which is wise people, lane 2, which is foolish people, and lane 3, which is evil people. Turn to your neighbor and say, uh-oh. Uh-oh. So there are three different ways. There's three different ways that you can view people or view relationships. The first one is naive. You can be naive, meaning that, and I'm sure a lot of us know someone who's naive, all right? You trust everybody. You're just like happy-go-lucky. You always assume the best. You assume that, maybe you can find yourself getting hurt because you just blindly trust everybody. You're a little too gullible. One of those, like, someone's like, hey, if you look at the ceiling, it says gullible. And you're like, what? I don't see it. You can be naive. Another way that you can view people or relationships would be paranoid. You can be paranoid, which is the complete opposite. You are assuming the worst. You trust no one. You don't let anyone get too close because you've been hurt maybe, because you've been betrayed. So you're just like, I don't trust nobody. All y'all suck. And the third way that you can view people and view relationships is discerning. Realizing that different people are different. And you treat people differently depending on how they act. If you look at Jesus, if you look at the life of Jesus, he was constantly interacting with so many people, right? It's like everywhere that he went, crowds followed. And everyone was wanting different things from him. There was people who wanted to be healed, and people who just wanted to hear him teach, and people who wanted to be his disciples, and people who were casting judgment on him and saying that he was possessed by a demon, and people who wanted to kill him, and people who just kind of wanted to go and see what was up. All these different people are constantly around him. So how did he remain having healthy relationships with unhealthy people? The first scripture we're going to look at tonight is John chapter 2, verses 24 through 25. As Jesus is looking out at a crowd, it says, "But Jesus didn't trust them because he knew all about people. No one needed to tell him about human nature, for he knew what was in each person's heart." So Jesus, it says that he didn't trust them because he knew all about people. No one needed to tell Jesus about the heart or the intentions of these people in the crowd. So Jesus, he wasn't naive, trusting everybody, but at the same time, he wasn't paranoid, trusting nobody. Jesus had discernment. As you look at his life, there was people that Jesus interacted with that he kept at a distance, that he didn't let get too close to him. He had some people that, after a series of time, after he had tested them over time, he allowed them to come into a relationship with him, more of like an acquaintance level. And then there was also some people who Jesus loved. John, as I talked about maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, refers to himself as the disciple who Jesus loved. Or Peter. There were certain disciples that Jesus became very, very close with. Or you've got, Lazarus and Mary and Martha, like the trio. He loved them. He had an intimate relationship with them. He spent time with them. So what I want you guys to think about tonight is becoming more wise in discerning in the relationships that you have. It's going to be a wisdom in relationships. That is the topic of tonight. And for that to happen, I got to give you guys these three lanes again: the wise, the fool, and the evil. We're going to be reading from Proverbs chapter 24 tonight. And the big point is right here is that we treat different people differently. Now, some of you guys are like, what the heck? This is weird. I thought, this is church. And, we say, oh, no, treat everybody the same. It's like, listen, guys. Everyone is equal in the eyes of God, but not everyone is equally safe to have a relationship with. Not everyone is equally godly. Not everyone is equally wise. Not everyone is equally helpful or equally good for you guys to be around. We see in Proverbs chapter 24, it says, "Be not envious of evil men, nor desire to be with them, for their hearts devise violence, and their lips talk of trouble. A wise man is full of strength, and a man of knowledge enhances his might. For by wise guidance you can wage your war, and in abundance of counselors there is victory. Wisdom is too high for a fool. In the gate he does not open his mouth." So throughout the Bible, guys, the Bible uses these three terms a lot. It uses the term to describe people: wise, foolish, and evil. We'll see that a lot throughout the Bible. And you need to understand these things. That way you can have some healthy relationships. And I want you guys to just think for a second, just before we dive into breaking down what this actually means, how would you classify yourself? How would you look at yourself? Would you say, yeah, I feel like I'm pretty wise? Would you classify yourself as a fool? Or I hope no one thinks of themselves as this. Or would you say, yeah, I'm evil. I'm an evil man. I'm an evil girl. And I want you guys to think of, in my most invested in relationships, in the relationships that I spend the most time, the most energy, the most money maybe, what kind of a person or group of people are those people that I'm spending time with? So just for for fun, we're gonna have three different sections, three different people. We're gonna have the wise people over here, and I feel like I'm not far off. We're gonna have the fools right here. I feel like this actually kind of works out. And we got the evil ones over here. All right. I'm just kidding. You guys aren't actually evil. Don't go home and tell your mom, Pastor Peyton said I'm evil. All right. So we're gonna break this down, guys. Wise people first. We see in Proverbs chapter 9, verses 8 through 9, it says, "Correct the wise, and they will love you. Instruct the wise, and they will be even wiser. Teach the righteous, and they will learn even more." So let's just start with this, guys. No one is wise in every single area. All right? That's just the reality. No one in this room, no one who's ever lived, except for Jesus, and probably Solomon definitely wasn't wise in every area. No one who has ever lived besides Jesus is wise in every single area, all right? You can be wise in relationships, and you can be an absolute doofus. You can be foolish with money, and vice versa, all right? There's a lot of really, really wealthy people who are good with money, and, they couldn't start up a conversation with someone to save their life. Let's just be real and honest. Not everyone is wise in everything. And also, just like Pastor Logan was saying last week, wisdom is not the same thing as intelligence. There are people who are very intelligent but are evil. All right, that is just the reality. And in our culture, we tend to highly value IQ and intelligence and not your godliness, wisdom, or fear of the Lord. If someone is wise, I'm going to start listing things off. So if you are a note taker / world changer, write these things down. Someone who is wise, they are humble. They're humble. They realize that they don't know everything. They realize that they are not always right. They realize that they may not always know what is best in a certain situation. Another thing is a wise person is teachable. They are teachable. They ask questions. They want to learn. They want to grow. If you confront them, they'll consider what you're saying rather than just immediately getting defensive. Hello. Anyone know what I'm talking about? A wise person will hear you out if you confront them. A wise person embraces reality. They embrace reality. Listen, if you tell a wise person, listen, if you only eat foods that end in Eatos, you gonna get big. All right. If you're only eating Doritos, Cheetos, Fritos, burritos, taquitos, it's not gonna go well. And they're like, okay, you are my health advisor, if you will. That's reality. A wise person is going to listen to you if you say, listen, if we are playing Warzone, or we're playing Fortnite, or Apex, or PUBG, or I don't know if there's any other BRs, and you try and solo squad, you're going to get clapped, all right? And the fool is not going to listen, and he's still going to try and 1v4, solo squad, all right? Any BR players in here? Anyone play Fortnite, Apex, COD? Say, ooh. All right, we got like 2 people who did the ooh. Listen, a wise person will listen to their youth leader if they say, listen, if you keep on posting thirst traps, you're going to have scumbags in your DMs. Uh-oh. A wise person would listen if the guy youth leader says, listen, if you keep on sliding into girls' DMs, you're not going to find a good girl to be with in the first place, and you're going to make yourself look like a fool. Uh-oh. A wise person is going to listen to their youth pastor when he says, listen, the last 4 relationships you've been in have ended in absolute pandemonium. It's probably not a good idea for you to get in a relationship right now. You should focus on yourself and your relationship with God. A wise person would accept that. They would embrace reality. Hello. A wise person has empathy. Empathy. They realize that the decisions that they make, the words that they speak, they have an impact on others, and they may have consequences. They have a compassion when they say something or when they do something, and that burdens someone else. If you look at Jesus, one of the words that is used most to describe him, over 60 times in the Gospels, the word that is used to describe Jesus is he was compassionate. When he looked at people, he had compassion for them, meaning that, when he thinks of his life, he thinks about how it impacts people, how it affects other people. He was not selfish, he was selfless. A wise person is responsible. Now I'm going to talk to myself here. Listen, you can bring responsibility to someone who is wise, and they're going to assume that responsibility, meaning you can entrust them to do things. They're responsible. A wise person, they seek to learn and grow. They have the mindset, if you have something to say to me, something to teach me that will cause me to learn and grow, I invite that. I welcome in you to teach me. A wise person welcomes the messenger. They welcome the messenger, which is going to be the opposite of what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. One of the wisest men who ever lived, especially in the recent era, was Billy Graham. Anyone know who Billy Graham is? That's my dude. All right, never met him, but that's my dude. I love Billy Graham. In a book that I read titled Leadership Secrets of Billy Graham, I love this quote. He says that he turned his critics into his coaches. Now, the difference between a critic and a coach is not what they say, but it's the reason why they say it. A coach will give you criticism to build you up, whereas a critic will give you criticism to tear you down. But what Billy said in his book is he said, I receive a lot of criticism, but I turned my critics into coaches. And what he meant was he said, I would receive criticism from these critics, and I would consider what they were saying, and even if the majority of what they said was wrong and it didn't apply, if I could find anything that they said that could make me a better leader, I would take that and I would try and become a better leader because of it. That's not, he wasn't defensive, he had wisdom. Wisdom is saying, listen, even if your intent is not good and much of what you're saying is not true, if I can find some truth in it, I want to receive it so that I can be wise, so that I can be mature, so that I can grow in whatever God has for me. That's something that so many people in our culture need to hear. Just because not everything that someone says to you is correct doesn't mean that there's not some truth in what they're saying. Wisdom says school's always in session. Wisdom saying, I always have things to learn. I don't have everything figured out. God, what are you trying to teach me in this moment? Honestly, a lot of times with wise people, and there's 2 people and there's conflict, actually what happens is it strengthens the relationship. Is there anyone in here who's ever had some sort of conflict in a relationship, either with a friend or a sibling or maybe a parent, and because of the way that was handled, that actually springboarded your relationship into becoming more mature and a deeper, healthier relationship? Anyone in the room? I saw you guys all raise your hands like 15 seconds earlier than I was expecting, but I love that. I love that you guys are engaged. So conflict with a wise person's not, someone just said what? Not engaged to be married, engaged like you're locked in. So conflict with a wise person is not always a bad thing. Actually, it's something that God can use for good. I'm going to tell you guys about someone that I went to school with, and I'm going to try my best to not say this person's name. Because I'm bad at that. Not that he's going to watch this video anyways, but whatever. There was this guy that I went to school with, and he grew up, and he had a really, really rough background. All right, this guy, his mom overdosed on drugs when he was a young boy. His dad was a deadbeat. He never had a job. He was still living with his parents, and both of his grandparents were just a little different. We'll just say that. And he lived with them, and he lived in the middle of nowhere. So he didn't really have he didn't have like a good Christian background. He had a pretty rough background, but he felt called to be a youth pastor, and he shows up at Evangel. This would have been I can't remember if it was my sophomore or junior year, but he shows up as a freshman, and he's like a fish out of water. He's like, hey man, I know that I'm called to be a youth pastor, but I don't know anything about being a pastor, about being a man of God. I don't know. But man, what I respect so much about this guy is he went and he talked to me, and he talked to a couple other guys in our hall who are older, a little more mature, were fortunate and blessed enough to have the background that we did. And he said, listen, I don't know how to be a pastor. I don't know how to be a good, just a man of God. I don't know how to be all of these different things. And he just said, can you help me? Like, can you give me some wisdom? And, it kind of caught me out of left field because that's so just unusual in our culture. But he did it with myself and a couple other guys. And, he would just come and he'd spend time in our room, and he would just sit there and listen. He'd be like, man, tell me how to study my Bible. Like I didn't go to church growing up. I didn't have a dad or a mom who taught me how to do this. Can you teach me? Like, how do you actually study the Bible? How do you write a sermon? How do you act like a man of God? How do you handle conflict? And he asked these things, and man, it just has stuck with me so much. This is not, he wasn't a man who knew a lot, but he's a man who wanted to know a lot, and he was humble enough to receive it. So again, that's why the scriptures say, correct the wise and they will love you. Instruct the wise, they will be even wiser. Teach the righteous and they'll learn even more. Now, the question for you guys now that I want to ask is, are there areas in your life where you feel like God has imparted wisdom on you? And now listen, you have to be humble about this, which is kind of an oxymoron. I was watching the movie Puss in Boots: The Last Wish last night with Kirsten. And I thought the song was so funny in it. I looked at the lyrics. It's, who's brave and ready for trouble? You are. And he goes, who's so unbelievably humble? You are. I just love that. So it's kind of an oxymoron. Who has wisdom in an area, but also you want to approach it with humility. So if there's something in your life where God has given wisdom to you in, whether that be through maybe an older sibling, whether that be through a youth leader, whether that be through Pastor Logan, definitely not from me, who's someone in your life that you could pass that wisdom on to? Whether it's someone in this room, maybe it's a younger person in this room, maybe it's a sibling that you have, maybe it's a friend that you're thinking of right now who's not here. Who is someone who you can help? If you're an older guy in the room, maybe you can help show some of these young bucks how to have respect. Maybe some of my seasoned saints, my ladies in the room, and you are a Bible warrior. You're like, man, I read my Bible, I study it. This is my jam. Maybe there's someone, in your life group here in a couple of weeks, and they're really intimidated. They're like, man, I don't really know how to study. I've got a lot of questions. Maybe you can help disciple them and pass on some wisdom. Maybe if you've got a deep respect and a deep, love and passion and understanding of worship and the importance behind it, maybe you can help explain that to someone else in the room who is like, man, why are these people raising their hands and they're jumping around? What's going on? This is kind of weird. Maybe you can help pass on that wisdom to them. And then the second part is, I want you guys to look at your life and think, man, what are the places in my life where I need wisdom? If I'm honest, I'm not wise in this area. I'm not wise in relationships. I'm not wise in finances. I don't have wisdom in studying the Bible. I don't have wisdom in self-image or identity. Man, I struggle, man. I feel like I'm foolish in those areas. Whatever the case may be, who do you know that's wise. This is why we have youth leaders. This is why we have youth leaders, guys. So that way you guys can go and talk to them. And this is also the reason why we do life groups. That's why life groups are so important. We're starting them in just a couple of weeks. It's all about building relationships and helping each other. All right, moving on. I promise I won't take as long on the other two. The second lane that I want to talk about tonight is foolish people. It's my dudes in the center. Foolish people. You know, foolish people are people who are not necessarily people who lack intellect, but they lack the ability and the humility, rather, to learn. You know, what happens with foolish people is all they want to do is argue. Ooh, boy. I feel like I'm preaching to myself all through middle school and high school. And social media does not help. Social media is actually the Greek word for foolishness. Proverbs 1:7, it says, fools despise wisdom and discipline. Fools despise wisdom and discipline. Turn to your neighbor and say, Meaning, you can't teach a fool anything. Can't teach a fool anything. They always have an excuse. You can say, well, listen, this is how it works. You know, this situation that you're in, you know, this is how it works. And they say, well, not for me. My situation's different. They always have an excuse. They don't want wisdom. They don't want discipline. They don't want responsibility. They want a shortcut. I can go on and on about this, but I'm going to keep it moving. Proverbs 26:3 says, guide a horse with a whip, a donkey with a bridle, and a fool with a rod to his back. You guys are like, Pastor Peyton, are you going to beat us tonight? You're darn right. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe. No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to do that. So what does this mean? What is the proverb saying here in chapter 26? This means that foolish people learn through painful consequences. Wise people let other people pay their dumb tax. Dr. Smallwood taught me that. I love that at Evangel. Wise people let other people pay their dumb tax. There's always a dumb tax, and somebody's got to pay it. A wise person lets somebody else pay their dumb tax. They come to you like, man, that sucked. Trying to approach a boyfriend or a girlfriend, a relationship like that was not good. Doing this with my money, that was not good. The way I handled this situation was not good. A wise person says, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to write that down. I'm not going to make that same mistake. I'll let you pay my dumb tax. A foolish person is always paying their own dumb tax. Turn to your neighbor and say, don't pay the dumb tax. Don't pay the dumb tax. Meaning, examples, I guess, a foolish person, they don't learn about money until they're already broke. Ellie thought that was really funny. A foolish person, they don't study until they're already failing the class. They don't come back to youth and community until their life is already fallen apart. Ooh, it's never too late. It's never too late, but it can be a lot more painful the longer you wait. Foolish people only learn through painful consequences. Pain is what motivates a foolish person. They don't change. They don't read their Bible. They don't start healthy habits until it hurts so bad that a crisis has come. And let's just be honest. I'm not up here pointing fingers. At least I'm trying not to. All of us, every single person in the room can look back to a certain situation or a certain season or a certain area of our life where we've been foolish. All right? Pastor Logan has known me for a long time. Your boy's been foolish many a times in the past. So we all need to have some humility and honesty when we're talking about this. But the first step in overcoming foolishness is acknowledging the places that you are indeed foolish. So here we go. I'm gonna list out a couple of things. Foolish people are proud. They're proud. They have pride. They don't embrace reality. They want reality to adjust for them. They're waiting for everyone and everything to orbit around themselves and to accommodate them. They can be very selfish. They can also be unteachable. You guys are going to come to see this is like the opposite of everything we said for wisdom. They're unteachable. Sometimes what happens when you try and correct or talk to a foolish person, they become what Proverbs calls a mocker, meaning that you try and call out something or speak to something in their life, and instead of them receiving that and hearing you out, they instantly turn it back on you, and they become a mocker. They begin to make fun of you. Like, oh, look at this guy. Oh, high and mighty. Oh, you think you're so good? You think you know better? Let's talk about all the things that you've done wrong. Let's talk about all the times that you've messed up. You're talking about this. Well, I remember when you did this in the past. You become what the Proverbs says, a mocker. And let me just say this, don't take the bait. If you are speaking to someone and you're doing it with the right heart, I'm not saying just being a jerk and pointing out other people's flaws, but when you're doing this with a good heart, someone that you have a good relationship with, and they become the mocker, don't take that bait. It will lead to death. Don't stoop to their level. All it is just pointing back and forth of fingers. It's not worth it. It only brings destruction. Another thing, a foolish person, they deny reality. Gravity, it doesn't say, hey, Josh is here. We no longer abide by the same rules. If you date a person who's not following Jesus, it's not going to end well. Sorry, I said it. If you date in middle school or high school and your parents and your friends and your youth leader and your youth pastor is saying, hey, it's not a good idea, it's probably not a good idea, but so often the fool will say, well, my situation's different. That may be true with every other case, but not for me. They deny reality. Another thing, a foolish person is selfish. They have low empathy. They don't think about how their decisions, they don't think about how the words that they say can negatively impact others. Some of you guys know someone who's foolish. You're thinking of them right now, and when you think of that person, it's like their entire life, like their whole life is a circus, and everyone else is just following them around with a shovel, is following the elephant around with a shovel, picking up their poop, picking up their mess. They're completely unaware, they're completely oblivious as to how the things that they're saying, the things that they're doing are affecting others. They don't realize that the way that they live their life, it's breaking relationships, it's hurting other people, it's frustrating others, it's emotionally expensive because they're selfish. Another thing, a selfish person often is an irresponsible victim. And sometimes the foolish person, they don't even notice this, but they consider themselves a righteous victim. And let me just say this carefully, try and not get offended. Oftentimes, a suffering person can actually be the most selfish person. Because a suffering person oftentimes can be someone who says, well, because this thing happened to me, because someone said this to me, because this thing happened to me, now everyone else needs to drop what they're doing, and everyone needs to orbit around me, and they need to cater to me, and they need to serve me, and they need to empathize with me, and they need to help me. And any foolish decisions that I make as a result, they're not my fault. You can't correct me because this bad thing happened to me. And the truth is there are real victims in this world. But selfishness is not the right response to suffering. I know we've talked about that many times. It's pivoting towards wisdom to learn and to have some consideration for others. The reality is there's people in here, you've been really hurt. You've been hurt by someone, and my heart goes out to you, but that is not an excuse to say and do foolish things. A foolish person also, they want others to change, but not themselves. You try and give them advice. You try and do it in a loving way, and they always say, well, it's someone else's fault. You try and say something to them. They're like, oh, but they did this. I did that, but they did that. They always try and point the finger on someone else. And lastly, evil people. Turn to your neighbor and say, uh-oh. Uh-oh. Evil people. My brothers and sister in Christ on the left. You're right. I'm just kidding. Proverbs chapter 2, verses 12 through 15. It says, wisdom will save you from evil people, from those whose words are twisted. These men turn from the right way to walk down dark paths. They take pleasure in doing wrong, and they enjoy the twisted ways of evil. Their actions are crooked, and their ways are wrong. So are there evil people? Yes. Sometimes we're raised in church, especially in the Western church, and we're like, oh, but we're supposed to love everybody and treat everybody the same and trust everybody and everyone has a good heart. No, not true. Not true. Look at what it says. Wisdom will save you from evil people. Not everyone has a good heart. I'm sorry to say it. Just like Jesus said in John chapter 2, he didn't trust them because he knew their heart. It's very naive to believe that everyone has a good heart. There are some really nasty people in this world. Sorry if that's breaking the news to you guys, but there are some evil people in this world. That is a part of living in a fallen world. You know, not everybody's nasty. If every single person in your life you think is evil, that means you got a bad picker. You're not very good at picking people to hang out with. You know, all you got to do is turn on the news, turn on social media, hear about the all-white parties, and you're like, there's some evil people in this world. You know what I'm talking about? No diddy. You know what I'm talking about? There's some evil people in this world. I was responding. Yeah, there's evil people. Proverbs talks about this. So, you know, the difference between a foolish person and an evil person is a foolish person will inadvertently cause you problems. An evil person will intentionally cause you problems. A foolish person says, oh, you know, I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. You know, it didn't even cross my mind. I'm sorry that I hurt you. An evil person says, no, I meant to. No, I wanted to hurt your feelings. I wanted you to feel that. You know, that the reality is, guys, look at the words that the author of Proverbs says here. He says, evil, twisted, dark, crooked, wrong. Listen, evil people, they're dangerous. They're dangerous people to be around. You know, dealing with them, it's like being around a grenade with the pin pulled. You know, you're saying things that, you know, how do I get away from this? And one thing I want you guys to note about evil people is oftentimes, in fact, almost always, someone who the Bible might classify, or you might classify as evil, is someone who is hurt and wounded. You know, and it's someone who is wounded and they've not experienced the inner healing from the Holy Spirit. And they haven't been healed by God. And as a hurt person, they go out and hurt other people. A quote that Pastor Logan and I heard all the time growing up is, hurt people hurt people. And because an evil person has been hurt, they like to hurt other people. Because something bad has happened to them, they feel justified in doing evil towards other people. And these kind of people are very scary and dangerous to be around. Some of you in the room may know a family member or a friend who is like this. And, you know, honestly, these kinds of relationships can be the toughest when it's a relative. So here we go, as we're about to close. How do you get those healthy boundaries? How do you have healthy boundaries? Well, with a wise person in your life, you give them more time, you give them more energy, you give them more access, you give them more love, you give them more information. With a foolish person, you may give them less time and less access, less money, less energy. You create healthy boundaries. You know, you say, I'm not going to do this for you until you do this. I'm not going to step in and help you out until you take the first step and show that you actually want to improve. You need to have some accountability. And with evil people, you give them nothing. Because any time, energy, information, they're going to use it to harm you. And some of you guys know what I'm talking about. There may be some people in here where you've had relationships in the past and you tried to confide in that person. You tried to be vulnerable and tell them something. And instead they went and they gossiped about you behind your back and they used that to tear you down. Listen, the reality is, with evil people, and this is not like a blanket statement. I'm not saying there's like a ton of evil people, but you know, this is why you need the Holy Spirit's discernment and wisdom. With evil people, you don't give them anything, because they will use it to hurt you. So with a wise person, you can have a personal, close, intimate relationship with that person. They're your close friends. With a foolish person, it should be more of at almost like a pastoral level, like what a pastor would have with someone who's kind of wild in their congregation, where it's you don't let them get too close. It's not that you're mean, it's not that you're rude or anything, but you don't let them get too close. And I'm going to explain the reason for that. And with an evil person, that's someone that you don't let get close at all. Again, you are not mean, you're not nasty to them, but when an evil person, you guys will come to see this, especially as you get older, a lot of times those people, they will gravitate towards wise people, and they will try and tear them down, and they'll try and take all their time and energy. And what you need to do in that situation is, no, you need to go see a professional. Let me go and lead you to my youth leader. Let me go and lead you to my youth pastor. You need to go and see a therapist. I'm sorry, I am not a licensed physician. I cannot fix you. You know, though people are not beyond help, they're beyond your help. They're not beyond help, but they're beyond your help. They need God and a professional who can help them. You know, and again, I want to speak to this. Sometimes, this is something that even I've been guilty of in the past, we can get into this kind of savior mentality, like, oh, I'm going to fix them. No, you won't. You know, and some of us can even get into romantic relationships with people thinking that you'll fix them. No, you won't. That person is drowning and they don't want a lifeguard, and you stepping into that and saying, oh, I'm going to save them. I can fix him. No, you're not. You're not putting them at risk of getting saved. You're putting yourself at risk of them drowning you with them. So what happens with wise people, those relationships, they get really good gas mileage. When you have a relationship with a wise person, you get really good gas mileage. When you have a relationship with a foolish person, you get really bad gas mileage. And in a relationship with an evil person, you get no gas mileage. You're dead on the road. All right, I'm going to tell you guys about my first car I ever had. Call it Girthy White. All right, Girthy White. It was a 2000 Ford Expedition Eddie Bauer. And that sucker got about 8 miles per gallon if I was trying to get good gas mileage, which I did because I paid for my own gas. When my brother Owen got it after me, I would go home to visit from college, and I'd get in there, and it'd say, like, average miles at the top. It'd be like 5.9 miles per gallon. All right? Sucker was not fuel efficient whatsoever, but it was a beast. Loved it. My car that I actually just got rid of, now I have a minivan, the Ford Fusion Hybrid. That sucker, yeah, the man van. That sucker got great gas mileage. All right, I'm like 45 miles per gallon. It was great. I loved it. You know, the reality is, guys, you have a limited amount of time and energy. All of us. We all have 24 hours in a day. We all have a limited amount of time and energy. And if you invest it with people who are wise, you're going to get really good gas mileage. You know, you're going to have some great discussions. You're going to have little to no fighting. You're going to be building each other up. You're going to be encouraging each other. It's going to be a great time. With a foolish, it's going to be like driving my Fusion Hybrid. Rest in peace. With a foolish person, it's going to be like driving Girthy White. You're going to be getting some really bad, it's so weird to call it that. It's going to be like driving my old truck. You're going to be getting really bad gas mileage. You know, it's going to be like, man, you know, I got to keep on talking to you, man. I got to keep on praying for you. I got to keep on checking up on you. I got to keep on following up on you. Not that those things are bad, but you're going to constantly be doing those things, and you're going to get almost nothing in return. You're going to make very, very little progress for how much time and energy you're putting into it. And with evil people, it doesn't matter how much time or how much energy you put into it. You're not going to be going anywhere. It's not moving because they don't want to. They don't want to. You know, and the want to is key. You know, if someone goes and has a meeting with Pastor Phil, say, a premarital meeting, and he says, you know, I don't want to love my wife. I don't want to love my wife. There's nothing that Pastor Phil can say that even matters, because if you don't want to do something, if you don't want to get better, if you don't want to get wise, if you don't want to receive wisdom, nothing else you say matters. It doesn't matter. A wise person wants to, an evil person doesn't want to. Does that make sense? Is that clicking in your guys' head? Okay, good. I know I just threw a lot at you guys. I'm going to invite the worship team on up. If you guys want to stand up on your feet, we're about to enter into a time, real quick, just of prayer and just genuineness. If you guys would stand up on your feet, don't talk to your neighbor. You know, here's how I want to close, guys. the reason why I said all this tonight is because I believe that the key to a healthy life, the key to a godly life, the key to a productive life that I believe God wants for you guys is having healthy relationships. Having healthy relationships. You know, we're meant to do life together. We're meant to do life with each other. I know we talk about that all the time. That's the reason why we say we're a family. We're a family. And I want you guys to experience the fullness of what God has for you guys. So, what we're about to do right now is we're about to enter into a time here for the next couple of minutes just in prayer and worship and response. I want you guys to do a couple of different things, actually. First is I want you guys to be open and honest and kind of do some self-inspection. You know, like the psalmist says, search me, O God. And where are the places in your life where you're foolish? And every single person in the room has areas in their life where they're foolish. No one in this room is exempt. You know, search me, oh God, what areas of my life am I foolish? What parts of my life do I need wisdom? And then also, God, what parts of my life, what areas of my life, maybe are there things that are just straight up evil? Some things that are so far, God, from your character and from your nature. You know, maybe it's something that you never want anyone to find out about. But man, it's something that's dark. It's something that you've been hiding. It's something that you've been bearing for a long time. Well, I've got good news. If that's you in the room, Jesus has already died and paid for that sin. There's no sin, there's no mistake you have ever made that is too great for the freedom that's already been given through Jesus. And you're going to have the chance to surrender that tonight, to lay that at the feet of Jesus and ask Him to cleanse you, to ask Him to forgive you of that sin and to ask Him to give you wisdom. And I also, lastly, I want you guys to think of someone, whether it be someone in the room, maybe an older student, maybe a youth leader, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's someone who's not here, someone where you can look at that area of foolishness in your life and you can look at someone who's very wise, and I want you to take time and have a conversation with them. Maybe you find that you're extremely foolish with, you know what, I'm not even going to say anything. Whatever it is that you feel like you're foolish in, I want you guys to have a conversation with someone about that as we leave tonight. But just be open, be transparent, be ready for whatever God is leading you guys to do.
Come sound with a rude boy ting.